Tonight's meeting of the Housing Committee is hereby called to order at 6:01 p.m. We'll just jump quickly right into the first easy item, the approval of minutes. Montserrat circulated minutes of our meeting, which was I'm just bringing it up on my screen. Our meeting of May 12th. Did everyone if everyone had a chance to look at it? I read it, saw no items for corrections. My last name was spelled correctly, which is often all I care about. So thank you for that. Any other corrections, changes to the minutes? Otherwise,
no comments.
Okay, then we'll
And I just wanted to, this time I'll write it down. I knew you told me last time, Brent. So I assume that I should finalize them and send them to that email.
Yes, agenda@whately.org.
Can I ask
agenda@whately.org.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, future meetings, if you put it in the Word document or PDF, I mean, you had a Gmail account. I had to subscribe and get something I didn't want in Gmail.
Oh, you should be able to see it without that.
No, it didn't. It asked me to register for a Gmail account. I opened it one of them. You had two files. I opened the second one and I read it, which was the minutes for this meeting. I think the first one was the trust.
Yeah, I sent both of those.
Because I had to register again through Gmail.
Yeah, it would be better. I mean, I do everything, but it would be better if you can use Google Docs to write the minutes, but then if you were to just save them locally and say Word format or PDF format to your local computer, okay, and then attach that document.
Okay, so I'll attach it. I don't have Word, but I can attach it as a PDF.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Fine. Yeah, just download it as a PDF, and then anyone who has corrections can just send those to you by email, and then you can update it. But still continue to work in Google Doc. But I agree with Fred. I've had this even though I've created and shared links to Google Doc documents, if they go to somebody who doesn't already have a Google account, then Google prompts them to create a Google account.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to make it hard for people.
Yeah.
Okay, I will, in the future, I'll share as a PDF.
Okay. The other comment I had, it's, I guess, on membership, and you listed who was present. I guess I'm used to the presence as members that were present and then others as a guest. And I'm a little confused. I guess it doesn't matter to me which way this goes or not, but you listed Fred Barron as a member. And I thought at our last meeting, he was just not a full member.
Yeah, I'm a little confused. I'm not sure what my status is.
Yeah, so
technically either.
You were a member of the Housing Committee even before you were elected as select board, I guess, even.
I think what I should probably do is be a member of the committee, but I will abstain on any votes that to refer something to the select board.
But then as a member, you can, I guess, participate and do things like the rest of the members can, even though you're
right. But I will just not vote on anything which would be referring something to myself.
But you would be still counted as the quorum for the quorum, though.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and I like that policy. And if there's no legal problem, then we treat Fred Barron as a voting member of the committee, and we're all kind of, Fred in particular is sensitized that he'll recuse himself from any votes that would involve referrals or anything specific with the select board.
Okay.
Okay.
So I don't need to change anything in the minutes.
So I do think Fred does, especially tonight, since we have a non-member of the committee who may become a member of the committee. But at the moment, like in the planning board minutes, and I can show you a copy of planning board minutes just so you have an example, Montserrat. We distinguish between, when we list attendees, we indicate who the members are in attendance, who the members are who are absent, and who the other, essentially guests are.
Okay, so it's like 3 little lists.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, very good. So did I hear a motion to approve the minutes as written?
I make that motion.
Okay, and you can legitimately do that.
I can now do that, yes.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Well, it shouldn't be Montserrat who wrote them.
Oh, okay. Well, but then it was Paula.
Yes.
Okay, that was Paul. All right, all in favor, just raise your hand of approving
Aye.
the minutes as written. Okay, they're approved unanimously. Very good, thank you. So.
How about
the
if we
next-
introduce ourselves since we have a guest?
Yes, okay, all right, because I live next to Jerry, so I know him well. All right, so
Thank you.
my name is Brandt Chikas. I'm the sort of acting as the chair of this committee for the moment, hopefully only for the moment. I'm also chair of the planning board.
Why don't we call you moderator of the committee? so we don't-
Moderator, thank you, thank you. That's me. I'll just pick out people and I'll call them out. Montserrat, you're next.
Sure. So I am just a member. I haven't been on the committee that long. I joined as a representative from the Conservation Commission in order to put together the housing production plan, which is now, and that role is now over, but I stayed on. And I live on Westbrook Road.
Thank you. Fred Barron.
Jerry and I have met through our budget hearings and the like.
Yep.
He with the finance committee, me on the select board.
Okay, great. Fred Orlowski.
You're a member of the Housing Committee and Housing Trust, I guess. Been on since the committee first started. And I'm also chair of the Board of Assessors and a few other committees I'm on. So
Very good. Former member of the select board, right, Fred?
you're a former member of Select Board, right?
Yep. Paula.
Paula Jenkins, I live on River Road. I'm a new member to this committee.
Okay, thank you
Great.
very much, Paula.
Nice
And
to meet
Jerry,
you all. Thank you for that courtesy.
you want to, I guess, do we all, well, not all of us know you. Like, I don't think Paula knows you. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. I do live next to Brandt here at Pine Plains Estates. I'm on the Finance Committee. I'm the liaison for the Finance Committee to the Personnel Committee. As I was saying, my working background was all in residential and commercial property management and development. I probably had at one point close to 15,000 units of affordable housing in 7 states across the country for a large portfolio. So this is an area that's very of interest to me. And I guess since we've done the budget, there isn't much going on my other committee from here until the end of the year. So I thought it might be interesting to just take Monty up on her offer that was in the Whately scoop and just check in. So thank you for allowing me to participate.
All right, well, it's a public meeting and you are part of the public, so, so very welcome. Well, so that takes us to our next agenda item and just sort of to catch Jerry up. So, we had an active housing committee in Whately. Well, I'm giving you a very brief perspective. Like, there was a housing committee. I at one point was invited to join it as the representative from the planning board. The housing committee sort of met for a number of times, and we are particularly involved in the development that really reached its fruition in late 2023 with the completion of a housing production plan. Paula, I finally sent you just in your email, sorry about that. But so Jerry, I will at least point you to, and I can send you a copy, but we completed a housing production plan, HPP, here in Whately, and it involved the planning board and the select board. It's posted on the Whately town website. If you went to the housing committee page, pretty sure it's the housing committee page on the town website,
Okay.
on the left-hand panel, you can find a link to the approved housing production plan as of late 2023.
the heavy lifting was really done by the FERCog, and they
Yes.
produced most of the text that then got massaged
Got it.
in housing and planning.
All right, I'll check it out. Thank you.
Yeah, and what it did definitely, I mean, from a planning board perspective, it did provide certain, recommendations about things we might do to make adjustments to zoning bylaws to increase the likelihood of to foster the development of affordable housing, both capital A affordable and lowercase a affordable within Whately. And we've started to do some of those, but there's a lot of unrealized opportunities for zoning related changes that would remove barriers to affordable housing. And I won't say anything, I don't want to get into a whole discussion of that right here, right now. But that was the main effort that I was privy to of the housing committee through most of 2023.
If I can interrupt, that was one of two sort of prongs of the housing committee's actions. That was one. The other is essentially an ongoing endeavor to look for opportunities to provide or build, single lot affordable housing, like a habitat kind of operation, or a small affordable house. So it's really two different approaches. One is legal through the bylaws to try to encourage housing, and the other is to try, which we've been unsuccessful so far, to identify a property or properties where we might be able to work on an investment in a single or multiple family project.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Right. So then when the work on the housing production plan wrapped up in 2023, more or less shortly thereafter, the then chair of the housing committee had to resign from her position due to for personal matters, and the housing committee kind of went moribund at that point and remained in that kind of non-operational state through most of 2024, and then maybe towards sort of losing a little bit of track of time. But anyway, there's been an effort recently, at least, to try to see if we can reboot a housing committee, because there's definitely need. Their expectations set up through this as a result of the housing production plan, of the town making progress towards increasing its stock of true SHI listed affordable housing units. That's the subsidized housing inventory, Jerry, so we have been struggling to do that. Basically, nobody here tonight, except I think it's safe to say you, Jerry, really has any relevant background in housing. I'm a computer engineer and computer scientist, right? That's my background. Paula was a recently retired school superintendent. Am I misremembering that? Principal. Yes. Well, but still, so, and neither Fred nor Montserrat have been. We all share the goals of improving affordable housing and expanding affordable housing opportunities in Whately, but we don't bring a lot of hands-on expertise, and that's been a limiting factor. We got to the point of starting a couple of meetings, and as of the last meeting, Paula joined, so this is Paula's second meeting, and we're really even just trying to sort out some basic operating parameters for the committee, including who's going to chair the committee, right? Because and that was really a discussion point last time. I think a number of us were sort of saying and I won't speak for anyone else but myself at this point. I'll say I feel like I have my hands full in Whately with my duties on the planning board. And while I want to participate in that, I'm still the planning board representative to the housing committee. I was reluctant to also take on the responsibility of being the chair of the housing committee, especially given that I don't have any particular housing background except, I live in a house. Right. So and part of why, Jerry, you saw what you saw on the scoop is we've mostly been trying to recruit people with some interest and expertise from our community to join the effort. Like build some people who are willing and able to put in some time, not only to come to periodic meetings, but do some additional work outside of meetings. We are not without some financial resources, as you know from now I'm sort of speaking to you, Jerry, but as you know through your through your finance committee role, there is $100,000 of monies that came from the Community Preservation Committee, CPA funds were transferred to the Housing Trust. Housing Trust, separate organization from the Housing Committee.
Right.
But for example, Fred Barron and I and Fred Orlowski, right?
Yes.
Montserrat, we're all trustees of the Housing Trust. So the only one, aside from you, Jerry, and you, Paula, who are here tonight, who are not you're the only two here tonight who are not trustees of the Housing Trust.
And
So
Jerry, just to fill you in, the Housing Trust is essentially a financial vehicle to help facilitate a real estate transfer a real estate purchase should that opportunity come along.
Got it.
The Housing Committee is really supposed to generate the ideas and the impetus for a project. If it comes to a point where financing begins to come into play, then the trust would kick into action. But aside from that, the trust, it's really a fiduciary entity.
Got it.
but it comes with more agility than the
Right.
usual appropriation process through town meeting.
Up to 100K.
Up to, the amount that has been put.
Right, but it could rapidly put a down payment or a binder on a property that the committee could not.
Got it.
Right. And of course, CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, has additional funds still in their pot that is earmarked for housing and affordable housing, which could, and I think I've heard that amount to be in the tune of 200,000 plus or minus. Does that sound right, Fred Barron?
It's as much as they want. It's as much as they want to allocate. Housing is one of their three areas that they can spend money on: open space and historic preservation being the others. So if a project required more money, CPC would decide, how much of their pot they want to allocate towards it. They have to allocate basically a certain amount every year, but they have a large amount of unallocated money that if a project came along, they could help fund beyond the housing pot.
Great.
So how much is in the housing pot that they have?
Uh,
I thought that was on the order of 200,000.
if you give me a minute, I can check and see what the current total CPC number is.
So that's a little background. This committee, this housing committee, has really only been operating for a couple of meetings. So we're still very much in the trying to figure out who can do what to help move the committee forward.
The current CPA balance, not all of which would be allocated to housing, is 636,000.
Right, but what's in the housing bucket?
I don't, all I have is the total. I
Yeah,
don't know.
okay.
Figure roughly a third, maybe some less, because I don't know how much is unallocated.
Yeah, okay.
So 200,000 is a reasonable estimate of
Right.
additional housing related funds currently under control of the CPC, which could be made available for housing initiative, bringing our, available funds up to around 300,000. But of course, CPC couldn't, those 200,000 or more couldn't be made available for housing without a special or annual town meeting.
Right.
So right now, all we have in kind of more liquid assets is 100K.
Got it.
All right.
Thank you for the background, everybody.
Yeah. Well, so that kind of brings us back to this question, and maybe where we left it at our last meeting in May was, are we just going to sort of operate for a while, kind of informally? No one's quite comfortable saying, like, I'll be the chair and do what's involved in being the chair. Or, like I personally, that I would like not want to be the chair if I could at all avoid it. While I still want to be involved and remain the planning board representative to the housing committee.
I would say if no one wants to be chair, if Brant, you're willing, or Montserrat, just to keep sending out the agendas and getting that going, I don't think we necessarily need to designate someone as chair, to volunteer someone as chair who doesn't want to do it.
So maybe, again, unless either you, Paula, or you, Jerry, if like, I didn't want to put anyone on the spot here. Maybe you just want to think about it. Maybe we just want to have a conversation tonight or meeting. Try not to make this meeting run more than an hour, and keep kicking this can down the road a little further. I'm certainly happy to kind of keep playing this informal role. Putting these agendas up and getting them posted is no big deal. Let me just see, like, in theory, our next meeting was going to be, we said it was the second Tuesday of each month, second Monday of each month, which would put the next housing committee meeting on Monday, July 14, which is on my calendar and I have no conflicts. So,
and if I can propose now that we have the July meeting, but then skip August when people might be away, and lots of committees don't meet during the summer anyway.
Perfectly fair. Okay, so note to be so noted in the minutes. So we'll meet next on July 14. Usual Zoom. I'll take the action to get that agenda posted.
And I'm happy to keep taking minutes and posting minutes.
Wonderful. So I guess we'll just sort of deal with the rest of the stuff under like topics not reasonably anticipated. This, in many ways, I didn't really anticipate much of this. So number one, I just want to report to everyone that the formal agreement between the town and the housing trust. So this is of information to those of us on the housing committee. The grant agreement that we were unable to find from the time of the original transferal of the funds, the 100K from the CPC to the housing trust. That original agreement had gotten lost, misplaced, no one could find it. We knew what it was, and everyone has now signed it. It's been executed. It's on file with the town clerk. I have an electronic copy in the housing committee files. So all of that's good. That 100K is all accounted for and we know the terms that came along with it, should we decide to use any of those funds. And I can, I will take an action to just share the, does anyone want me to share a copy of the housing trust agreement that pertains to the funds, just so we on the housing committee know what the terms would be if we wanted to access those funds? Jared, I'm just gonna send this to you. I do have your email address, Jerry, right? I often
Good.
text, but I do have your email
You're
address.
roping me in as a member. I'm only 20 minutes into the first meeting.
Well, I just figure you're here, so at least I can share information on
I
a
appreciate
no
that.
strings attached basis.
I'm being facetious.
I know you're being facetious.
And just to
So,
clarify, Brant, the agreement is between the Housing Trust and the town?
the
Yes.
town,
Okay,
where the select board signed to obligate the town. So that's all done and dusted, yay. So the other thing that we do need to do, and maybe another can to kick down the road tonight, or something we can do tonight, is it is in fact one of the terms of that grant agreement that the housing committee have a standing representative on the Community Preservation Committee, the CPC.
I'm willing to do that.
You were willing to do that,
Yeah,
Marcia.
I just emailed like 15 minutes ago.
I'm sorry that I didn't see that.
No, that's all right. I thought, oh, I'll go ahead and just volunteer now and I'll say it in the meeting.
There it is. All right, I see your email right now. Okay. Does anyone else want to challenge Montserrat's nomination, self-nomination to be the committee representative to the Community Preservation Committee? Hearing none. So
I'll second the nomination.
yes, all right. So she's self-nominated. Fred has seconded it. So all in favor, all members of the housing
Aye.
committee are in favor. Raise your hand of Montserrat being our representative to the CPC. And you can vote for yourself, Montserrat. You could, yep, okay. So it's unanimous. All right. Excellent. Wow, we got that done. So I will notify Judy, who is the chair. Is she the chair of the CPC? She's,
And do you
Anyway,
need
I
to
won't-
notify I guess the select board knows since you're here.
Oh. Alan, I think Alan is chair, isn't he?
Yeah, I think Alan's the chair.
okay.
Judy's a member, but not chair.
Okay. So is this a formal thing where she's going to need an appointment letter and all of
That's
this?
what it sounded like from Judy's email, but they can let me know.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. The only thing I don't know is whether CPC is a select board or a moderator
Okay.
decision.
So what I will do is I will contact the town administrator and the town clerk. And between the two of them, they will figure out how to make that official.
Okay.
And I'll CC some official email of the Community Preservation Committee. Thank you, Montserrat, for stepping up into that important role. Okay.
As long as we're doing appointments, Brent, did you see the note from Judy about the center school?
Feedback.
I did see that. Yeah. What was that, Paula?
Somebody to be on the feedback committee, is that
Right.
what you're referring
Right.
to?
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Because I would be interested in that.
You would, Paula.
Yes. Mhm.
That would be great. So this was Judy's email. Yes. So the Center School Committee was awarded a grant from the National Trust to undertake a feasibility study to determine optimal uses of the center school. Blah 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 blah. So that went to me and Fred Barron, Fred Orlowski, Montserrat, and Paula. And there's an attached proposal, and it looks like there's going to be some kind of some number of meetings related to that. And
Yeah, so there will probably be public meetings and meetings with the, smaller meetings with the consultant to try to focus their activities.
Right.
okay. And Judy's email asked that that a response to her be sent. So I will respond to Judy's email. You'll all see that, and I'll convey to Judy that Paula Jenkins will play that role.
At this point, I think Judy's the chair of the Center School
Visioning.
Visioning Committee. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay. The only other thing that I wanted to let people know, I just wanted to share a little bit about this. Give me one moment. I think I shared with you this. I'm sorry, I'm having just give me one of those moments to bring this up. So there, what the FRCOG, Franklin Regional Council of Governments, had orchestrated a CPA housing workshop. So it was really focused on how Community Preservation Act funds can be used to support housing. That was the whole point of the workshop. I attended the workshop. There's a recording. I think I forwarded to all of you the email with the link to the recording, and there were also attached summary notes from that workshop. I confess I may not have done what I just said I did. Did anyone get it, or can
You
tell
did.
me?
Yes, I got it. Yep.
Well,
Okay.
I got the PowerPoint presentation. I don't remember if there was notes or anything else attached.
That was it. It was just the PowerPoint presentation.
PowerPoint, yeah.
Yeah. And I will just tell you guys, I'm just looking at my own notes from when I was there, that probably for me, the one thing I took away from that workshop, there's a lot of great information in there that was new to me about how CPA funds can be used. But for me, the biggest takeaway was that CPA funds, per this workshop, can be used to hire housing consultants. And the point was made and discussed at the workshop that many small towns, and I'm thinking Whately, have difficulty. It's often challenging for all volunteer organizations to make substantive progress on housing. And there was some discussion at the workshop, like why this is hard and how CPA funds could be used to get a consultant to help do research, generate ideas, and things of that nature. And at this point, and I thought to myself, well, here we are. We're a housing committee in a small town that is trying to get organized, and we may be relatively thin when it comes to relevant expertise. And perhaps looking into the question of who might we hire, what it might cost, and so forth, might be a valid use of some volunteer time. And during that workshop, they mentioned a few organizations, and what I could see was, if, say, coming out of tonight's meeting, if any one or more of us could agree to do a little bit of research about where some hireable expertise might be found and what it might cost, we could at least evaluate whether getting a consultant could help us make progress. And
No, I think that's a good idea. Would need to narrow the focus of what kind of consultant do we want? Do we want someone who's going to help us build one, two, small units of housing, or someone who's going to help us massage the bylaws to make housing more attractive, easier to build on existing lots. And those are both legitimate directions, but they're very different
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
and would require very different expertise to achieve.
Fred Orlowski.
Yeah, can I share for a few minutes here what the housing committee has been doing in the past? Because I don't think many of you, even before Fred Barron joined the committee, were kind of aware of what activities, efforts that we tried to implement that didn't have much success, or maybe because of the interest. First off, we tried to look at improving housing for existing houses in town, like for elderly, handicapped people, and we had funds available to help them improve, maybe put handicap ramps on, or do stuff inside. There would be a deed restriction, I guess, if we did go that route. And there was even an effort to advertise through was it FERCOG or the Franklin County Housing Regional Housing Authority to do that, to say funds were available. There was articles and advertising in the local newspaper. And I think we even sent out postcards to all the residents from the housing committee saying, here's opportunity if you want some improvements in your property. Here's what's available. Please apply and respond. Well, we didn't get any response to that. At the same time, or shortly after that, we looked at individual properties in town and tried to get Habitat for Humanity involved. And they looked at several properties in town and decided that the cost to make the property, either buy the property or make it usable for housing because of wetlands or lack of septic or water or whatever, was too great for them to participate, for Habitat to participate. What they want is a vacant lot that has sewer and water accessible to it already there, and then they would consider building some property there for housing. Okay, we didn't have that in Whately. They weren't interested kind of in 1 or 2 units. They wanted several units. There was also an effort to, recently buy one property on LaSalle Drive that the homeowner decided not to sell to us. Even before that, on LaSalle Drive,
The property owner, it's not really a home anymore.
well, okay. There was other parcels of land on LaSalle Drive that the town had some activity on trying to convince the homeowner to sell or work with the town. I was involved with the chair of the committee back in, I don't know, 2017, 18 maybe, before COVID, of trying to work with an agreement with the property owner to purchase that, and there would be some kind of what I call it, partnership with the homeowner to develop land there. We never got that far to talk with the homeowner because I think COVID started and the chair of the committee left. So all the agreement stuff that was proposed was written. I have copies of it, but we never proceeded with it. And then shortly after that, we got into COVID, and it seemed the emphasis that we were hearing from either legislature or different funding organizations was for more than single family homeowners, more than single family properties. If they weren't really, money wasn't really available to develop one property for elderly or low income. If you wanted to develop for 10, 12, 20 properties, 20 individuals, that was where the emphasis was going. And maybe part of it was for the You can see the blue school is kind of going that way, although I don't think there's no CPA money into that. But, that's what happened in Sunderland with the Sanderson Place thing. There's multiple units there. And it seems this committee was kind of thinking about going to multiple units, but we never had any leadership, any coordination with the groups that would fund it. FERCog was available, but I guess the committee lost interest. The chair of the committee that had experience in housing left, so the rest of us were kind of left in the open without doing anything. And that's the latest where it stood. So, there's been, and I would say, 6, 7, 8 different activities related to housing over the years that we tried that weren't successful. The select board tried one at the DeMille property. Now we're also looking at Sugarloaf Shops at exit 35 and the center school. I guess we is still potential opportunities. And I think it's got to come down to, the stuff we've tried didn't work. And we need some kind of leadership of the committee that can look at, that has the time to coordinate with FERCog and to investigate funding that's available for developers, maybe talk with developers to get some interest in that. And I was hoping that at the town level, the community development person, I guess you call it, was kind of involved in that before, but never took a lead in continuing to get involved. It was like an afterthought that they were available and help, but never took the lead and coordinated with other people. I don't know what the current community development or the new community development person is going to do, is going to help this committee or not. But I think we need that. We need that leadership with somebody that has experience in housing projects, maybe real estate, maybe development, maybe property management activities that can coordinate and work with the committee to get something going. And I think, we have enough money to, well, you could buy one property if you wanted, but I see the town doing more than just one property. I think we need to go bigger than the one property. And that's when you need somebody to coordinate all this to do that. It's not going to happen overnight. Sanderson Place took, 8, 10 years, I guess, before they finally got something going. It's going to take some time, some involvement from somebody to do that.
Yeah.
I would agree with you. It would take somebody with expertise in real estate or management or whatever. But I guess being a novice to this committee, what is the drive here to expand housing? Is it just to add money to the coffers of Whately, or have you been getting feedback from citizens saying, I want to stay in Whately, but I can't. I would like to move to Whately, but there's nothing available. What is the impetus here?
If I can quickly, the lead emphasis would be the not mandate, but suggestions from the state as to what amount of affordable housing you have in a town. And we are below that threshold.
Okay.
And we would like to see if we can get ourselves at least up to it's not easy. Most towns of our size are below the threshold. They do not have as many affordable housing units as the state would like us to have.
Right.
So that's the first. We would like to just increase the affordable housing stock in general. If I can have a brief comment on some things that Fred said, I totally agree.
Okay,
But-
before you go on, can I
Yeah.
add one thing to what you
Oh,
said?
sure,
Fred, Mary?
absolutely.
Yeah,
And if we don't have the amount of affordable housing that the state wants us to have, we are vulnerable as a town to somebody from the outside coming in and imposing affordable housing on us.
Right.
All right.
All right, thank you. That makes perfect sense to me, that
Okay.
perspective. Thank you.
As far as what Fred says,
And Fred, just wait. hold on a
Also
second.
Yeah,
market,
go.
If I
market
may,
rate.
because I do want to continue
Yeah.
my comments on Paula's question too.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
just hold your thoughts in response to Fred
Yep.
Orlowski. I do believe, Paula, that, I mean, I've heard various things along the lines of what you said. People saying, hey, I do want to live in Whately. Like another member of the planning board has said the same thing. His mother lives in Whately, but is basically having to age in place and stay in a house that's much larger than she really needs or wants to live in or take care of. But she can't move, she can't downsize or move anywhere smaller in Whately. So we've definitely heard, at least anecdotally, right? Anecdotally, that people would like to have more options for, small apartments or condos or something like that. Whately is either, farmland or single family homes on large lots. And I think, and that's why historically we've talked about sort of big A affordable housing, which is housing that is, subsidized and priced for people, who have, fall below a certain income level. And then there are many other things mentioned in that housing production plan about how we could make just housing for existing residents more affordable. Some of the things Fred Orlowski talked about supporting certain kinds of improvements to existing housing stock could be not about making housing more affordable to people of lesser means, but helping existing residents who might be otherwise getting forced out. Okay.
Yeah. Other hurdles in Whately are, if it would be nice to have affordable apartments or the like for people, but I have heard from many people, and I think there's a general sentiment, Whately doesn't want any developments like on Route 116 or 47 in Sunderland of big garden apartment or other apartment complexes. So that's one thing that limits the size of a development. The other thing, which also feeds back into what I was going to say about Fred Orlowski, is in doing developments, we're limited on the upside and downside of the size. On the downside, places like Habitat don't want to do single units. They want to do multiple units.
Right.
On the other hand, on the upside, we can't build a thing like Sanderson Place. We don't have sewers. We're limited in the size of apartment we can build based on septic. So we're
May
sort
I
of,
ask a question there? Is it
sure.
proper?
Please, go ahead.
Yeah.
You mentioned and I really like that Sanderson Place example. That's a
Yeah.
well done building with the right dedication in a great spot. The Sugarloaf shops that you mentioned, what is their sewer situation? Are they connected?
No, they're in Whately, they're on septic.
Right. So they're on the line with Deerfield.
Right.
Is there an opportunity to coordinate with Deerfield to tap into their water sewer system? I looked at a development opportunity in Leverett, in which the seller has a lot of real estate, but they've got the septic problem. But there was an opportunity potentially to run up and over the hill and down into the next town over and tap into their system. If Sugarloaf Shops is close enough and the town is willing to pay for the connection, that sounds to me like probably one of your best opportunities to build a multifamily building. You could put 50 units. I don't know much about that whole shop area, but there could be an opportunity. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think, well, what you said, Fred Barron, I don't think that's true. I think there is sewer to the Sugarloaf Shops from South Deerfield. I think they're
Okay, there
hooking
is,
up,
okay, I'm sorry.
on the sewer and water from South Deerfield. Because I don't think Whately Water doesn't, I don't think Whately Water even goes to the
No,
truck
Whately
stop.
Water doesn't go up that far.
Doesn't go up that far. It goes halfway up on State Road.
Yeah,
Uh,
How much
so
footprint is at Sugarloaf Shops that's available? How big is the space? The
how big?
area?
Well, you're looking at using existing vacant buildings or property, vacant property, or
Right.
property at very reasonable prices. There, assessed values are really low on some sections of property. In
Right.
that
How big
area.
is how big, Fred, is the footprint? Because part of the Sugarloaf Shops is that Cheech and Chong outfit, right?
Right.
yep.
On one end, yes.
So it's the vacant side with the big parking lot.
So I don't
Well,
know that it's
It's
vacant
not vacant.
because, yeah,
No, that's not big.
DMC, the other cannabis operator in town, has leased
Yep.
that other part of the building. So there's Cheech and Chong, and then as you go, south and east, that part is rented by DMC.
Right.
So all the space is currently leased, so you'd have to wait for the leases to expire.
Yes.
It's
Right.
also, I've always thought that was the best spot for affordable housing too, also because it has public transportation.
That was my
Right.
next question. Yeah, and it doesn't have a high walk score, but you can get down to Deerfield, Southfield Center
It's
from
got a
there.
new sidewalk there.
Yeah, and there's a bike path, I think, that goes through. But if that entire building and parking lot structure is available for development, you can go up and put parking underneath, so you don't lose the parking, but you can gain space, you can mass.
Mhm.
And you could put a fairly significant one, even potentially you could share some of it with Deerfield. I doubt they're certainly not they're in the same issue, I'm assuming, relative to 40B and outside developers coming in.
Right.
Outside developers are going to probably come in to do market rate housing with a limited amount of housing for affordability.
Mhm.
Usually the set aside is maybe 10% of the units, 10 or 15% of the units being affordable. But there's probably, if that's a nice parcel of land, and I've driven by it, I've never really paid attention to it.
There are two parcels there,
Yeah,
technically.
Right.
And I just checked the assessment map. The most recent sales of those properties totaled just under $2 million,
yeah.
which before you even start demolition and building housing. So it would be a very major project, assuming you could even purchase the land.
Right,
Part
yeah.
of the problem being that it's zoned commercial, and there's a very limited amount of commercially zoned land. Converting that to residential would just be very expensive
Well, it's going to
for the
be
land alone.
right. The construction costs, we did a lot of mill development, but even right now, I'd imagine it's got to be 400, 500,000 a unit, depending on what you put up. But if you're putting in affordable housing, you're opening up a whole nother pocketbook, because theoretically you could do something with low income housing tax credits, state credits, depending on the site. There might even be environmental credits, et cetera, et cetera. And what these developers do, what we did, was create layers of financing, primarily supported by the LAHTC. And then again, if you have real affordable housing, part of the building is straight Section 8 for less than 30% area median income. You have the opportunity to tap into even more HUD money. And so you can get both tax credits if everything's less than 80% AMI, or you could do a mix. It's all possible.
It's also assuming the HUD money stays there.
And the same with the low income housing tax credit, that stays. But as you think about a development site, if that one has the water sewer, Do you know when the leases expire?
No,
I have no idea.
The town doesn't own it, is what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
And there's a dentist behind there too, so
right.
Yeah, and that's also a separate lot. They're all individual
Got it.
lots.
right. But if you're talking about putting in a whole complex there, that dentistry would be impacted as well, correct?
But I
It would
think
be
most,
impacted, but it wouldn't have to be in the project.
I think most of the property that you would consider would be on the east side of, well, I think that's Old State Road that goes through there. On the east side, the dentist is on the west side.
Mhm.
So there's some small or low income ones and a vacant parcel on the east side of Old State Road that would be most likely area to develop. The other thing I like to bring up, and I don't know how many people know or not, that there is two, I guess, low income or affordable housing units in Whately. The town owns the building. It's called the Smikes House next to the town hall. There's that white building, 2-story building. There's 2 units in there that the town has an agreement with, I think it's Franklin County Regional Housing Authority, to manage that property for the town. They collect the rent from the owners. They manage all the maintenance, all the work. They may even applied for CPA at one time, but they manage it from fiscal standpoint and also from personnel or occupancy levels, whatever. They do all that for the town. The town doesn't get one dime out of it. We don't get anything out of it other than they doing all that for the town. So the town doesn't get any tax money on it because we own the property. So it all goes to that housing authority. There's an agreement that the town, I think the select board signs off on it. It's every 10 years. I'm thinking it's a 10-year agreement, and it runs continuously. I think the next time it comes up is 2027, because I remember in 17 we had a chance to review the agreement with the Franklin County as far as what they would charge their fees, what they would charge the renters there, and whether the town will get any money out of it or not. That comes up every 10 years, and that agreement can be changed if you need to. So if we're looking at 1 or 2 units here, single units, it's going to come to, does the town want to own it and be the landlord, which, the town has said they don't want to be a landlord. I don't know who would manage all that at the town, because there are organizations that do that. So that's the other thing to consider. Who's the manager?
And you said there were 2 such places. You mentioned Smikes. What's the other one?
No, the 2 units. It's one
There are
building.
2 units at Smikes.
2 units in that one building.
Difficult to find a management company, a real one that would handle a 2-unit situation.
If I can interrupt, though, we promised Monty we'd keep these to an hour,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
we're at an hour.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's because
Thinking of the good of all of us.
Right.
right. Okay. So maybe then to just wrap this up, you should, if you haven't already looked at the materials from the housing workshop, I encourage you to do that.
And
And
I
so
think this was the beginning of a good discussion for this committee of what kind of direction we want to go in and what sort of projects we want to really be looking at.
Right. I agree. And that's why we need, if we hire a consultant, to focus on what we're looking at, not just all housing in general,
Right.
housing activities in general. Yeah.
Right. But I think we need to have this discussion next month and even after that until we
Right.
coalesce on some ideas.
Right.
all right. So that's the main action. So 2 major, some.
Can I just say one more
Montserrat's-
thing?
Yeah, go ahead, Montserrat.
Well, I remember when we discussed this before Catherine left, we kind of settled on, it would be great if we could develop something like an 8-unit complex. That would make sense for Whately. That's about what we need. It's big enough that we might be able to get support for it. And so I just wanted to remind people that that was what we came to earlier.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So Montserrat's going to be recommended as our CPC rep. Paula's going to be recommended as our representative to this center
Center
school
School.
Center school
Feedback.
committee, and we'll all, cogitate about tonight between now and July 14 for our next meeting about what are some ideas we might, as a group, see if we can make some progress on.
Okay,
Okay.
move to adjourn.
Okay.
Motion has been made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. I think all in favor of adjourning, members, voters.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. I will stop the recording.